Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for what is going to be another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update on this triumphant Tuesday. As always, if you are new to this channel and finding yourself on my videos for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button because we drop an update just like this one around 1 p.m. UK time every single day to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets, and that's exactly what we intend on doing in this video. We're going to be starting the video off with some news out of China in regards to Bitcoin and gold. Very interesting because we are seeing both gold and Bitcoin act as a vehicle of escape for collateral damage to governments and their failing fiat system. So we're going to be starting there. We're going to be going over and talking about somebody that we've not spoken about in a long time, which is Richard Hart, the founder of both Hex and Pulse Chain. He has recently released a tweet, and I'll go ahead and show you the tweet whilst I'm talking about it, that is actually summarizing some of the arguments from his 11 lawyers in regards to hopefully dismissing the SEC's case. Now, we know that the SEC, I believe, launched a lawsuit against Richard, Hex, and Pulse, potentially, or Richard Hart specifically in regards to Hex and Pulse. And of course, he is fighting this. And I kind of agree with him that the crypto space should stand together. And they should fight this together because a loss on this front is going to have broader ramifications for the crypto space as a whole, and a win on this front is going to have broader ramifications for the crypto space as a whole. So whatever you think about Richard, put your biases to the side and understand that this is going to have broader ramifications for crypto as a whole. Whether you dislike the guy or not, leave that to one side. We'll take a look at this. We'll talk a little bit about Coinbase, and then we're going to be diving into the charts, most notably, obviously, Bitcoin, US dollar, the total 2, and USDT dominance. So we're still very much in a bull market. This is just a period of consolidation. There's a lot of kind of greater forces at work in regards to on the kind of macroeconomic landscape. We see oil rising or having a bit of a excitement, which of course is leading the dollar. Why is that? Well, what's led the dollar? It's been interest rates. What's led interest rates? It's been inflation. Oil is like the biggest factor of inflation because it's in literally everything. Oil kind of coming up. That's kind of casting a little bit of doubt in regards to rates and the Fed's willingness to cut. And on top of that, they don't really need to cut because you're getting all this super strong data. So it's strong dollar. It's kind of leaning, if you will, on risk. Bitcoin, crypto being the highest beta of that. But we think this is just a hump to get over. I think the Fed are actually going to tolerate higher than expected inflation due to the kind of debt burdens and rates and the pressure that the Treasury is likely going to be putting on the Fed in regards to bringing rates down. You know, we looked at even a 1.5% decrease would take the federal budgets, or not the federal budget, the Federal Reserve's interest payments, or it might have been the Treasuries, from 500 billion over a certain amount of period all the way down to 100. So it makes a massive difference. But we got a lot to cover, so I don't really want to waste too much time talking about the macro. It's not going to be macro focused. I just wanted to kind of explain the kind of pushback on the markets. Also, interesting time, April, going into May, selling May come back in St. Leger's Day. We are seeing some outflows in regards to products, but we can cover that in another video. Let's cover and dive into what we have for you today. So this was from yesterday. Very interesting. A $284 billion China Southern Fund has reportedly applied to launch a spot Bitcoin ETF. Now, the interesting thing that I want to kind of link up here is the fact that we see from Eric Belanchunas more wild stuff in China as local investors pile into gold stock ETFs, pushing its premium to 30% and forcing it to halt trading. Investors there are so desperate to buy anything that are not linked to their own economy and stock market, which has been in the gutter. So both gold, they're in the same category, gold and Bitcoin. Bitcoin's in a number of different categories, but it is in that kind of anti-fiat category. And it serves as a vessel, just like gold, to escape collateral damage from your governments and their irradical, I think, planned spending to basically implode the system and then usher in a new one for another video. And we always keep saying for another video. We will get all these videos made at some point. But it's interesting that we're seeing that bid for gold. Remember, Bitcoin is in an uptrend against gold. So Bitcoin is going to be a better performer. And there's this narrative that is going to continue to drive Bitcoin in regards to it being a hedge against stupidity, a hedge against proliferation of a fiat system. And this is the great game. This is what the Matrix is really all about. It's about keeping you guys poor through continued proliferation that most people don't even know about or are unaware of, whilst the rich get rich and you have this kind of super class and everybody else. And, you know, if you look at like Marx's manifesto, for example, two really important parts of that is a progressive tax system and a central government. Not a central, obviously a central government, but a central bank. Very interesting. You know, we're supposed to live in a kind of capitalistic world, but we clearly don't. So good news for Bitcoin coming out of China. And then, of course, also good news, I guess, in regards to seeing bids for gold, likely for the same reason that Bitcoin is going to do well. Let's talk about Richard Hart, somebody that we've not spoken about in a long time. Now, I don't mind Richard. I really don't. I think people were kind of maybe... I didn't like the whole designer stunting thing. I did for no other reason than I don't really think it suited him. To be honest, I think it looks a bit ridiculous. But that's just my own opinion. He's a very successful guy. He was very successful before he was in crypto. He's somebody that I have watched humble so many smarty pants when it comes to the cryptocurrency space that have tried to call him out on certain things. And he's somebody that, honestly, I really don't mind at all. And, you know, basically, the reason that we're bringing this up is because the SEC actually have charged him with the same things that they've charged many people with. Basically, the same thing that they charged Brad, Ripple, and Chris with. The kind of sales of unregistered securities and the enabling of it or facilitation of it. And of course, he's fighting back. And I think people, because they don't like Richard Hart, will say that they kind of want him to lose this case. But if he loses this case, this is going to have broader ramifications for the cryptocurrency space at large. So I do think people should be sort of supporting our own, if you will, and kind of getting behind and you know, not preying on Richard Hart's downfall because he used to flex in designer and with Lamborghinis or whatever it may be. I find that stuff cringe personally, but I don't think Richard's a particularly bad guy. I can understand why people perhaps don't like him, but this is interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds because what he's tweeted is Ethereum. So he's bringing the Ethereum community in here, and more broadly, basically anybody that's been mentioned as a security. 11 of my lawyers are fighting for your rise. They just filed this motion to dismiss with the SEC. The fact patterns here seem superior to the fact patterns of other cases you see in the courts. And as such, it's a wonderful place to make a stand. Check out the strong First Amendment arguments. This affects free speech, open source software, and more. Crypto projects, consider asking your lawyers to file an amicus brief in this now ripe case. Amici are best served well before the SEC's brief is filed 3 months from now. Though this court has no official guidelines, good precedent set is good for everybody. Bad precedent set is bad for everybody. Due to this court individual rules, this brief has been served to the SEC, but will not be shown on the public docket until all briefing is complete in August. It is still a public document and free to share at this point. Brilliant. So this link is only valid for 2 weeks. Feel free to tag other crypto communities and important Twitter accounts. This affects more than crypto. You can imagine what's happening in the comment section here. But there are some arguments that has been raised. You know, it talks about, you know, kind of the background about what Hex is. Some of the arguments is the courts lacks personal jurisdiction over Mr. Hart. So I assume that is in regards to his situation. The SEC has failed to plausibly plead the existence of a domestic purchase, sale, or offer of securities. The complaint filed to state a claim for security fraud. The complaint does not adequately allege that any parties entered into an investment contract. The complaint unconditionally, whatever, you know, there's a lot of sort of arguments here. The pre-statement is a very interesting one. It's really about Pulse Chain, I believe. I don't even think it's Hex even. Yeah, so Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X. But this is interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds, because if they get Richard on this and they get kind of Hex and Pulse, that's going to give them broader. I think they went for quite a low-hanging fruit with Richard. That's going to mean a broader kind of context for other cryptocurrencies out there. So this is something we'll keep you up to date on. Interesting that they've kind of filed this and this is being shared. I'm going to leave a link to this in the description if anybody wants to take a read. This only came out literally today. We were going to get into some Coinbase stuff, but for the sake of time, we're going to be skipping over it. Let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin and the charts very quickly. So we know where we are at, and it's just a case of watching, waiting, and allowing it to play out. You know, there was some small and still is small structure for Bitcoin, and it's very interesting where it's actually bouncing. So you did have this grind line that you were capped under, a bit of a symmetrical triangle. You've broken out, you've now come back, you've retested it, you're failing to close below it. You're likely going to sort of springboard off this. The more interesting chart for me, of course, is total 2. So this sees the altcoin market go from $1.1 trillion to 3.7. It's a 3x. Some coins are likely going to 20, 30x as a result of that. Actually, when we looked at that symmetrical triangle for Bitcoin, you can see a very similar one actually setting up for the total 3. Sorry, the total 2, which is altcoins excluding Bitcoin. And the interesting thing with this is, if this breaks, and I think it's likely to do so, that's going to complete this right shoulder that we've been looking at and actually see things do very well. Now, we spoke at the start about the kind of macro conditions that are sort of weighing heavy on things. There's going to likely be a turning of that. That's going to come in the form of the dollar, hopefully rolling over. We're looking at the euro dollar to kind of maybe preempt that. I'm going to be doing a video for my Patrons later. If you want to become a Patreon, check the link in the description. But you've got this pattern that's looking to trigger. At the same time, you've got USDT dominance that's looking to trigger to the downside, kind of supporting one another. And you've got this to play out for Bitcoin and many altcoins really well positioned. This is Hedera, for example, to kind of bounce and find support. So we are in a bull market. The resumption of that bull market, and some altcoins really unfazed by this whatsoever, is likely to continue. And actually what we're seeing on the total 2 could be setting us up for exactly that. So I don't want to go on for too much longer because we've gone on for 12 minutes. Just another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. We've covered a number of things. Really good news out of China. Also, we're seeing gold do well, and there's a crossover there with Bitcoin and crypto more broadly. Let me know what you think about the whole Richard Hart thing. I know he's a very polarizing figure. I'm saying that we shouldn't be preying on his downfall because it has broader ramifications for the cryptocurrency space at large. And also, you know, just kind of stick to the plan when it comes to, there's nothing technically that's worrying me in the cryptocurrency space, but do not take that as financial advice. Remember, always do your own due diligence and homework. I am not a financial advisor, and you need to be man enough to make or woman enough to make your own decisions and live and die by that sword. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks a lot for watching. See you all in the next one.